All right, everyone, we'll get started. It's 12 o'clock as everyone else hops on. Welcome to our information session for the University of Notre Dame's online master's program in data science. My name is Samantha Adamczewski, and I'm so happy that you're here with us today. I am thrilled to introduce two of our current students to you. Sydney and Kate, will you introduce yourselves?
Sure, so I can go first. My name's Kait Arnold, and I'm in the class of 2021. I am a analytics engineer at VSP Global, and because no one might know what analytics engineering is, it kind of entails data engineering, advanced statistical analysis, data visualization, and analytics and data strategy consulting. I also volunteer for a global nonprofit called Women in Data.
Cool. Yeah, so my name's Sydney. Pardon, I have a bit of a cold. I'm in the class of 2020, so I'm graduating this May. And as of like a week ago, I'm starting my job as a data scientist at a kind of small consulting firm that specializes in data.
All right. Thank you both, Sydney and Kate, for being with us here today to answer the students' questions and kind of teach them a little bit about your experience in the program. Before we get started here today, as you ask your questions throughout this session, please be sure to use the Q&A function that that Zoom offers. It's right at the bottom of your screen. We'll try to get to all of your questions here today, but if we don't, we'll be sure to follow up with you via email so you can get those questions answered. If you leave here today and you think of a question, and you're like, man, I wish I would have asked that question, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at datascience@nd.edu. All right, because you're here today, you likely know a little bit about our program, but just a quick overview for you. Our program is a 21-month-long program. It's part-time, and it is for working professionals. All of our students take 30 credits over 5 semesters in the program, and it is fully online. We also work with our industry partners and our corporate partners to keep all of our content and curriculum current, because we know in the ever-changing world of data science, it's a really important thing to make sure everyone is up to date and up to speed. So that's just a little bit about our program. So we will get started here. Please feel free, like I said, to add the questions into the Q&A section so we can ask Sydney and Kate those questions. Our first question for you guys is about the content. What types of things are you learning in this program, and how is it useful?
Yeah, so I guess the types of things is everything. It seems like we've touched at least a little bit on everything, and if it's not something that I mean, that includes kind of like even newer stuff. It's like, hey, this exists, and I think that's one of the really cool things, is because knowing that it's out there, like what are the current like things, what's new on the horizon is really cool. So specifically, so right off the bat, you'll learn a lot of statistics and programming. So we use R and Python, but then later in the course we'll handle with databases and SQL, and you'll touch kind of like on Sparkler and some of the other kind of tools. And then we have everything from kind of like statistical learning, which is kind of like your kind of fancy models that you might think of in data science, like your neural nets, convolutional neural nets, image recognition. But then we also have like behavioral data science, where you're talking about like natural language processing and like latent class analysis. And yeah, I don't want to like I mean, we just have lots and lots and lots. And is it useful? It's very useful. So I actually, between my first and second year in the program, I was able to actually get an internship as a data science intern. And it was, because everything was so applicable, I could use things I learned. And then it was funny because at the time I was literally doing like a project that involved something we were like currently learning. So it was like, okay, I learned this in class this week, and then I go to work the next week and, oh, look, it's applicable. And I get to actually try it out. And then now I've just started a new job as a data scientist. Yeah, and it's definitely not like I get into the real world and it's like, oh, like I learned all the wrong things. No, it's definitely been very useful.
Good. Pete, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I second everything that Sydney said. And to add to that, I've taken several online courses before I started at Notre Dame, at Coursera, Data Camp, and nothing has come close to the caliber at Notre Dame. And I'm only in my second semester of the program, and I'm already learning skills that are directly applicable to my work. So to name a few are Python, linear regressions, the fundamentals of data scientist, but I'm also learning these skills in a way to directly translate into real world situations and best practices. So I would say it is extremely useful, and I am learning exactly what I should be learning if I want to be a data scientist.
All right. The next question is one I think that we get most often from prospects and from people just starting their program. And it is, what is the typical week like, and how do you balance work, school, and life? I don't know which one of you wants to start, but I know that that's a most asked question.
I can start here. So I'm going to be honest with you, but I don't mean to scare you. So the first semester was hard as hell. And I'm sorry, Sam, if I'm not allowed to say hell. But I was out of school for over 2 years, and I haven't done full-time work and full-time school ever. But that being said, I've grown so much as a person by challenging myself with this program. I'm learning time management, and my productivity levels have increased drastically. In the beginning, my days seemed like they were 24 hours, and now because you're kind of forced to make your hours feel like they're longer, you do it. So it's really challenging work, but it's so rewarding. And first semester, I might not have been able to say this, but I'm fully able to balance work, school, life, and that doesn't mean that it's not hard after the first semester. I'm doing homework on my lunch break. I'm coming in early to work. But it's enjoyable. If you're currently in a data role and you really enjoy it, you're going to enjoy the topics that we're learning about. And if you're doing something that you're passionate about, it's fun. So it's not like I dread doing homework. Of course, every night I don't come home from work like so pumped to do my R homework, but the majority of the time I honestly am enjoying it. And back to the question about a typical work week, I would say there isn't really a typical week. 1 week I could be doing 4 to 8 hours of schoolwork multiple days of the week. So I'm squeezing it in. I'm coming in early to work. I'm doing it after work. I'm staying up late. And the next week I could put in an hour or 2 hours a few days of the week. I think it really depends on the material that you're learning. And for a specific homework assignment, it could take someone 8 hours while it takes another person 20 hours. So I think it's all relative. You put the time that you want to put into it, and you'll get out what you put into it. So it's all relative. You learn what works for you and you adjust to fit your needs. But moral of the long story is it's doable.
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. It's definitely kind of what you put into it. So I know I'm someone like we have the way it's structured is usually you have your videos you watch, you have some readings, you have some maybe practice problems or, like think about this kind of questions. And then you have your live session with the professor and you have a chance to ask questions and maybe go into topics deeper or have more discussions about what you learned. And I'm kind of one of the people that like when I watch the video, I take notes, I pause it, and I might even go back on the live session if I think I missed something. So like, I think my process probably takes longer. You can kind of do it as you will though. Maybe you're fine watching it once. Maybe you don't want to take the time. Like maybe, like I think that's something you kind of get into like a bit of a rhythm, with like your typical week is like your deadlines tend to be the same. Your classes will always be Monday, Thursday. And so you kind of know that. And so you're able, once you kind of get in that rhythm, you can say like, okay, I'm going to do like this time will be my homework time or this day will be my work day, if you're one of the people that want to do it all at once. Yeah, I think balancing it is just kind of, I think the biggest thing is just staying on top of deadlines. If you can look at the material early and kind of find out where you understand it or where your kind of weak points are, where you may not understand it, and kind of tackle those practice problems, and come prepared to class, or even not even class. We have a really great online kind of discussion tool where you can chat with your classmates and your professors and ask questions, which is very, very useful, because even if you're like, professors always been great about getting back on responding, but then your classmates can also help. And so figuring that early, I think, is the best. And then that way you're not ever like crunched at a deadline being like, I don't understand it, or like I have, a work event until, 6 or 8 or whatever, and then I have to come home and work on that. And yeah, I think just a lot of just kind of organizing and pre-work, like just kind of, setting yourself up for the week.
All right. The next question is, why Notre Dame? So while you were looking for a graduate school program, did you consider other programs? And if so, why did you choose Notre Dame over those other programs?
Yeah, so I did consider a few other programs. I chose Notre Dame, I think, because of like the emphasis on like the small kind of class size, and you're being able to talk with your teacher, and the fact that like twice a week you're on webcam talking with your professor and all your classmates, and you're just like very close knit, is just like a learning environment I really kind of thrive in. That's what I want. I was really leery of kind of online programs where it's like, oh, you go on and you answer a forum post and then you respond to 2 other people's forum posts. Like, I hate those. Those are like the bane of my existence. Like, I did not want to have a program where it was just like that kind of shallow level of interaction of like, okay, you read a book that I probably could have just read on my own and then post something. Like, I really wanted more like engagement. And then another reason I chose this one is because it is so tailored. Like, they went out in industry, talked to partners about what they're looking for in data scientists, and then crafted these classes to fit those kind of industry expectations. Where some of the other ones online were kind of like, okay, we're going to pick this class from our math department and pick this class from our business department and pick this class from programming. And so it's they call it data science, but you're learning so much extra stuff, and you're spending so much time learning stuff that isn't relevant to data science, when that it was like, okay, like it's great, it's great to know that, but then like also I want to, like, this is my master's, I want to learn about data science. So that's kind of how I felt. I don't, Caitlin, you want to add?
Yeah, I have a little bit to add to that. So I probably looked at every single program that offered a program in data science. I did so much research, and I knew I wanted top notch. So once I kind of knew that, a lot of my options fell off the radar because of that. And then I had it narrowed down to about 3 or 4 decisions. And I started to make a list of what I was looking for in a program. So I said, I want a class in this, I want a class in that, I want live sessions, in-person opportunities, industry connections, a broad curriculum. I didn't want a 3-year program. I won't go through my whole list, but I created a list of non-negotiables and then good to haves. And then I made a decision matrix. I'm very type A, so this is what worked for me. But I made a decision matrix, and when I put everything side to side, I compared all the checks in each column, and Notre Dame just really stood out based on what I wanted. So it's really good to kind of understand what you want to get out of the program. And then if you're looking at a few different options, look at what they have and compare them. That's kind of how I did it. So if that seems like something that would work for you, then I can send you my decision matrix if you want.
All right, thank you for those answers. We're going to move on to some questions that people have submitted through the Q&A tool in Zoom. Please feel free to continue to submit your questions. The first one that we have is, how is the program structured? Is it traditional classroom instruction, or are there collaborative sessions with fellow students? I think you guys touched on this a little bit during your talk of the live sessions and kind of what it looks like. So I will I'll elaborate a little bit, and then if you guys want to answer the question, the way the week is structured for our students is they have live sessions on Mondays and Thursdays. There are 2 sessions, one for the East and one for the West. We recognize there's a lot of people spread out on various time zones depending on work travel or regular travel. So that is how we structure our live sessions. But is there anything else other than that you guys want to add to the instruction or their immersions or anything like that?
I think you covered most of it. I mean, class is the only time that's really structured. And besides that, you might be working on a group project like Sam and Sydney mentioned. So you might be meeting an hour after class or something like that. But everything outside of the scheduled class times is flexible. So you work with your teammates, you work with your group mates, and pick a time that works for everyone. And then the immersions, I'm sure you guys know about those too, but I went to the first 2 so far, and they were amazing. I've been to like IBM Thinks conferences, similar conferences, and I learned so much at the immersion that we just went to that I convinced my boss that I'm not going to any more like industry conferences, that I'm going to the Notre Dame conferences only while I'm in the program. So that says just how valuable they are, and they really put the time in to make sure that we're getting what we need to be getting out of the program.
Yeah. And then also like our professors kind of have an idea for how they want class to go. Usually that involves talking to the class as a whole, maybe covering kind of the same material, going in deeper. And they have small group, like breakout groups where you might work on like a particular like practice kind of problem with your small team or like discuss something. But I would say all the professors have been very flexible. Like if like there's massive confusion, like they're not going to just keep rolling on, like they're going to be like, okay, like let's figure this out, let's recap this real quick. Like they're definitely flexible in making sure everyone kind of understands the material, and they're totally willing to answer questions or clarify something or go into more detail.
All right. Sydney, you might have to answer this because you've taken the databases course, but what specific database technology did you work with?
Let's see, we did SQL, so we did Microsoft SQL Server. We did like MapReduce kind of work, which is like, I think the Hive Hadoop. And then we did, we did Neo4j and worked some with graph databases, which is pretty neat. And then I'm trying to think, I think that was like kind of the highlights. We kind of talked, so those are like specific tools, and then we kind of did like here's how relational databases work, like here's how like structured, unstructured data, kind of high level, and like there's other tools out there, like here's kind of an introduction to some, or how you might approach learning a new tool, if that makes sense.
Perfect. All right. The next question we have here from the chat function is, how much prior programming experience is expected?
I could speak to that. So I knew a little bit of SQL going into the program. I didn't know R, I didn't know Python, I didn't know Java or anything, so only SQL, and I'm doing just fine. So, I mean, if you know Python, if you know R, it will be easier for you because that's what we're learning. But I think you can go into it and learn everything that you need to in the program. The first semester, they teach you R and they teach you programming. They teach you R and they teach you Python, sorry. So you're not thrown into a class that's experienced R and you're expected to know it. They definitely ease into it, but that being said, if you do know any sort of programming languages going into it, you'll be at an advantage. And yeah, I think that's really it. I don't know if there's anything more specific than that, but I think either way, if you know programming, you're fine, and if you don't know programming, you're fine too.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add.
All right, perfect. This next question is, can you tell me a little bit about the demographics of your class? Is everyone just out of school, or have they been out of school for several years? Also, are some working in related fields or very different fields when completing this program?
Yeah, so we have a very wide variety of people. I think Sam, you might know better, but I think the oldest person in the program was the class before me, and I think he was like what, 70?
He was 60.
Um,
Mhm.
61? Yeah, so like and I think we have some people in my degree or my class that are thinking actually of like retiring from their current job and then being a data scientist. I'm one of the younger ones. So I think the youngest is probably what, 22, I think, when we started,
Mhm.
something like that. So that's just kind of the age range, and I think we have pretty much everyone in between. So same kind of lots of experience. Some people are kind of fresh out of school, used to school, haven't really worked in industry long. Some people have 30 years of industry and are leaders in their industry. um, I think we have a lot of variety on like why people are going to, because some people like me want to pivot into, I want to be a data scientist. And some, like, because I was coming from electrical engineering and like software development. And so we do have a lot of people from like different fields, like everything from like HR related, educational. We have a couple people in education. Um, I think like bio industries, chemical engineer, like just wide variety of industries, like for sure. And then so some people are pivoting to a data science role, and then other people are in kind of an analytics role already, and they're wanting to learn more or looking to grow upward at their current company, um, or we have some managers that they're see that data is going to be this big thing and they just want to know more and understand the tools, especially if they're overseeing data scientists.
Yeah.
Um,
And Kate, I want you to answer this
yeah.
question too, but before we move on from Sydney, Sydney, do you feel that the wide variety of backgrounds and ages and reasons for taking the program is beneficial?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it's great getting to know such like a diverse group of crowd and like be friends with them, like I have friends that are in their 50s, 60s, like we can all go out to lunch or dinner and we hang out at immersions. And yeah, I think it's great too, because like we're so interested in a common subject, but they have uh so much other advice or connections, or I mean, even people my own age, it's nice to compare, like, okay, like, how are things for you? Like, we're kind of similar. Like, what's it like in this other industry? So yeah, I think it definitely gives some a lot of unique perspectives. And then geographically too, we have people from all over the world. I always say this is the only class I had a project over the summer. Everyone was traveling. I had a group project with someone that was in England and in the UK, and someone that was in China. And then I was in the West Coast time, and then we have people in Central time and East Coast time. And so that was just like super fun. Like who can say that? Like just yeah.
Perfect. Kate, do you have, you're in a different class. So Sydney and Kate are both in different classes. So Kate, can you speak a little bit to your class?
Yeah, I think my class is pretty similar to Sydney, so I'm not going to repeat everything that she just said, but we have people from all ranges of the spectrum, age-wise and industry-wise. So I wouldn't think that your age or your industry would be any impediment on joining the program. I think everyone should join.
All right. Perfect. When is the next application deadline is one of the questions which I can answer. Our next application deadline is March 1st. If you head to our website, datascience.nd.edu, you can find the application and more information about that. So I'll answer that one. Are the immersion weekends required?
Yeah, I don't think they're required. I think the orientation is like because you want to go meet your classmates, professors. I wouldn't say required, but highly recommended, because they're really great. And I mean, they're great fun, they're great networking events, you learn a lot. Um So yeah.
Right. And Sydney is right. The orientation immersion at the very beginning is required. Everybody comes to the Notre Dame campus. You get to meet your classmates, your faculty, the staff, all of us. And then we get you ready for that first week in classes, whether you've taken classes, 2 years ago or 20 years ago. We want to make sure everyone's ready to start at the end of August. You guys touched a little bit on what immersion weekends look like. How many students are in each class?
My class has I guess it depends what class you're talking about. My year 2021, I think there's about 50, right, Sam? Mm-hmm. And then probably like 30, 20 in each class. So we have an East class and a West class, and that's just the schedule that you're on, either at 7 o'clock at night or 7 o'clock at night. Your time for me would be 7 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. So those have about 20 or 30. So that means that when you're in the group in the live session, it's a very small group. So you have the ability to ask questions, interact with the teacher. And I think that's a huge benefit to the program.
Yeah, and mine's a little smaller. So I think we're closer to maybe 43-ish, 42. Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm on the West Coast. And so I'm on kind of the smaller out of the two, the West Coast versus the East Coast. I think like actual West Coast people, there's less, but then we have some people from other times that are coming too, because that's the other thing is just because you live on the East Coast, you don't have to go there if you'd rather take it late. Just that's your class for like that semester. So yeah, I think it's about maybe the same kind of 18-ish in my class.
All right, perfect. I think we have time for one more question. How much programming experience is expected? You guys touched a little bit on if any is required, but do you have anything to add in terms of what a good amount would be, or anything that you did? Did either of you do any prep work for the start of the program in the fall?
So I actually worked as like a software developer. So I'm very comfortable with programming in general. I'd worked with Python before. I hadn't covered R. I'd done MATLAB, which is kind of similar. So over the summer I did I think I found like a free book online that was kind of like Intro to R. Just kind of got myself familiar a bit with like the IDE, like what you'll be working with, and just kind of poking around a bit. Like I didn't do anything like in depth because yeah.
I think a lot of students also, from what I've heard from them, do brush up on the R and Python, but as Kait said, you can also come in and just start with the program. So I think it definitely varies on your background and what you've done and what you feel comfortable with, certainly. Before we wrap up here, Sydney and Kait, are there any last thoughts that you have, or any advice for the group?
Go for it. It's great.
Go for it. I'm on the fence about even doing a program because there's so many online courses that you can learn from. But like I said at the beginning, I haven't experienced this level of education in any of the online courses that I've taken. And you're also learning so much just from other people, learning other people's perspectives about different industries. So I think that is unparalleled with what you might see at a Coursera or Data Camp or something like that. So I would second Sydney, and I would say go for it.
Yeah. And then also too, I just want to plug, over the summer, we have a storytelling and ethics class, like 2 separate classes. And I think that's unique to this program, that you have kind of that focus on ethics and data science is huge, very, very important. And then second, the storytelling is being able to convey the results you're finding, especially with so many of like the models you work with can be like a black box or people don't understand, and you're having to convey this to leadership of like, what does this mean? And so those, like, the programs I saw like out there, they don't necessarily, I don't think are strong in those or have those like advertised as kind of a big deal. And then now I've gone out in industry in like 2 different positions, and that is like so important. It's like, yes, you're talking about ethics, like you understand it's important, like you understand how to tell the story with data, like what does it mean? Because I think it's very easy, especially in the online programs, to get just bogged down in like being able to do the technical details of like, hey, look, I can copy and paste this code and it runs. And it's so important to be able to like explain what it's doing and like what it means to someone both technical and non-technical, which I think this program does a really great job of doing.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Well, we are out of time for today, but I just want to thank Sydney and Kait for joining us today to answer these questions and go through and kind of show you a little bit about their experience in the program. If you want to connect with us further, all of our information is on the screen. You can email us if you've got questions after we sign off here. You can connect with us on social media. And like I said, if we didn't get to your question today, we'll follow up with you directly on email so that you can be sure to get those questions answered. So thank you so much for joining us today, and let us know if you have questions, and have a great rest of your day.